She looked at me and said, "You're nothing like the man I married. You've changed completely." I calmly replied, "Yes, I changed. The man you married used to let you treat him badly." I left that night, taking only what was mine, paints, brushes, an easel, and other things, everything she once saw so much romance in. A few weeks later, she called, saying she now understood the value of what she'd thrown away. But by then, I'd already painted my masterpiece, and she wasn't in it anymore. Let me tell you how I got there. How a 38-year-old portrait artist named Vincent Hayes became the kind of man who could walk away from a 12-year marriage with nothing but his art supplies and his dignity. I met Lauren Mitchell 14 years ago at a gallery opening in Soho. She was 26, working as an assistant curator, all elegance and cultural sophistication wrapped in black designer clothes. I was 24, fresh out of art school, displaying my first serious work, a series of portraits exploring isolation in urban spaces. She approached me during the reception. "Your brushwork is interesting," she said, studying a portrait of a subway commuter. "Almost impressionistic in places, but the faces are hyper-realistic. It creates tension. That's the point. People surrounded by others, but fundamentally alone. Dark worldview for someone so young. Honest worldview. Age doesn't change truth." She smiled. "I like you. You're not like the other artists here. No performative angst, just quiet intensity." We talked for 2 hours. About art, about loneliness, about the weird space between what we show the world and what we actually feel. By the end of the night, I had her number and the irrational hope that someone like her might actually be interested in someone like me. We dated for 2 years, married in a ceremony her parents planned and paid for, moved into a loft in Brooklyn, affordable then, barely, where I could paint and she could be close to the galleries and museums where she built her career. For 8 years, it worked. Not perfectly, but genuinely. She advanced from assistant curator to associate curator to curator. I sold enough paintings to contribute, built a modest reputation, got gallery representation. Then something shifted. Lauren became obsessed with status. Not art, not culture, status. Who had shows at which galleries, which collectors bought whose work, where we stood in the pecking order of the New York art scene. My work, which she'd once called quietly powerful, became too subtle or not commercially ambitious enough. You need to think bigger, Vincent. Larger canvases, more provocative subjects, something that gets attention. I paint portraits. That's what I do. That's what I'm good at. Portraits are fine for illustrators. You're supposed to be an artist. Artists push boundaries. The criticism became constant. My work wasn't bold enough. My career wasn't advancing fast enough. My sales weren't impressive enough. Every conversation about my art turned into an assessment of my failings. The respect died first. She stopped coming to my shows. Would make excuses, too busy, too tired, already seen the work. Would compare me unfavorably to other artists. "Daniel's show at the Whitney is incredible. You should study his approach. Michael just sold a painting for $75,000. When are you going to command those prices?" Then came the contempt. She'd mock my work to friends. Vincent's doing his sad, lonely people thing again. Very on brand. She'd criticize my process. "Still spending 12 hours on one face. That's why you'll never be profitable." She'd dismiss my successes. "Regional gallery show? That's nice. Wake me when it's the Guggenheim." The intimacy died last. We went from making love regularly to occasionally to rarely to never. She claimed exhaustion, stress, being touched out from work events. When I tried to discuss it, she'd turn it around. "Maybe if you were more successful, I'd find you more attractive. Ambition is attractive. Stagnation isn't." I should have left then. Should have recognized emotional abuse for what it was. But I was trapped in the same pattern many abuse victims fall into. Believing if I just improved enough, tried harder enough, succeeded more, she'd treat me with basic respect again. So I painted, worked longer hours, took commissions I didn't want, tried to create work that would impress her. Nothing worked. The criticism intensified. The contempt deepened. The relationship became a masterclass in how to systematically destroy someone's self-worth while claiming to want them to succeed. 6 months ago, things reached a breaking point. I'd been commissioned to paint a portrait of a tech CEO's wife. Good money, $15,000 for a formal portrait. I spent 6 weeks on it, getting every detail perfect. When I delivered it, the CEO was thrilled, paid immediately, even asked about future commissions. I came home excited to tell Lauren, found her in the living room with 2 of her curator friends drinking wine. "Vincent got another housewife portrait commission," she announced to her friends. "Very lucrative, very artistically groundbreaking." They laughed. Not polite chuckles, genuine laughter at my expense. "How much do you charge to immortalize someone's trophy wife?" one asked. "Enough that we can afford rent another month," Lauren said. "Someone has to pay bills around here." I stood in the doorway of our loft, our home, listening to my wife mock my work for social points with people whose opinions mattered to her more than my feelings. Something broke that night, not dramatically, quietly, like a rope fraying until the last thread snaps. I started documenting everything, not for divorce initially, just for myself, to understand if I was crazy, if her behavior was actually as bad as it felt. I kept a journal, wrote down every criticism, every mocking comment, every comparison to other artists. Every time she chose social status over basic kindness, the entries painted a clear picture. My wife had contempt for me, for my art, my career, my choices. She stayed for financial convenience. My income covered half our expenses, and social convenience, being married to an artist, gave her credibility in art world circles. But she didn't respect me, probably didn't love me, maybe never had. I should have confronted her, should have demanded counseling or explained how her treatment affected me, but I'd learned that conversations didn't work. She'd gaslight, deflect, or turn my concerns into evidence of my inadequacy. "You're too sensitive. Can't you take constructive criticism? This is why your career isn't progressing. You can't handle honest feedback." So I made a different plan. Methodical, artistic, appropriate for someone whose profession was seeing what others missed and capturing it on canvas. I would paint one final series, my masterwork. Then I'd leave with my art supplies and nothing else. She could have the loft, the furniture, the life she'd built using me as a convenient prop. I'd take only what mattered, my brushes, my paints, my easel, my dignity. The series would be called The Marriage. 8 portraits, each one capturing a moment from our relationship, the progression from love to contempt, from partnership to parasitism, from the man who'd believed in us to the man who'd finally seen the truth. I worked on it in secret, early mornings before she woke, late nights after she slept. Weekends when she was at gallery events I wasn't invited to. Took me 4 months to complete all 8 paintings, technically perfect, emotionally devastating, the best work I'd ever done. The 8th and final painting was a self-portrait, me looking at the viewer with absolute clarity. No sadness, no anger, just understanding. The face of a man who'd finally seen himself clearly after years of being told he was insufficient. I titled it Clarity. 2 weeks ago, I finished the series. Photographed each painting professionally, sent the images to my gallery representative, a woman named Sienna Phillips, who'd been representing me for 6 years, called her the next day. "Vincent, these are extraordinary, completely different from your usual work, more personal, more raw. They're about my marriage, about what happens when someone weaponizes your vulnerabilities. They're powerful, painful, but powerful. I want to show these, full series. I think we could get the Hoffman Gallery. They've been looking for something with emotional depth. How fast can you set it up? 2 months? Maybe 3? I need it faster. I'm leaving my marriage. Once I do, these paintings become evidence of my mental state. I need them sold and gone before lawyers get involved." Silence on the line. Then, "How fast do you need?" 3 weeks. Can you do it? It'll be tight, but yes, for work this good, I'll make it happen. Sienna got me the Hoffman Gallery, opening in 3 weeks, Friday night. Private reception for collectors and critics, the kind of show that could redefine a career. I didn't tell Lauren, didn't mention the series, the show, any of it. Just kept painting my regular commissions, eating dinner across from someone who'd stopped seeing me as human, waiting for the right moment. That moment came last Saturday night. Lauren came home from a gallery event around 10 p.m., slightly drunk, in the mood to criticize. I was in the studio area of our loft, cleaning brushes. "How was the opening?" I asked. "Incredible. Trevor's new installation is genius. Truly boundary-pushing work. Made me think about how art should challenge viewers, make them uncomfortable." She set down her clutch. Not just pretty pictures of pretty people. There it was. Another dig, another comparison, another reminder that my work was insufficient in her eyes. "I'm glad you enjoyed it. You should have been there. Would have been good for you to see what real ambition looks like." "I wasn't invited." "Because you don't make an effort, Vincent. You sit here painting your commissions and wonder why the art world doesn't take you seriously." I set down the brush I'd been cleaning. "Lauren, why are we still married?" She looked genuinely surprised. "What kind of question is that?" "A straightforward one. Why are we married? You clearly don't respect my work. You don't seem to enjoy my company. We haven't been intimate in 6 months. So why stay? Because I love you. Because we've built a life together. Because marriage is work, and I'm committed to doing that work. Love looks like criticism, like mockery, like telling your friends I paint housewives while they laugh. Her expression hardened. I give you honest feedback because I want you to improve. You're sensitive about it. That's not my problem. You're right. It's not your problem. Because I'm done making your contempt my problem. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're nothing like the woman I married. You used to value my art, support my choices, see me as a partner. Now you see me as a disappointment. Someone to mock. Someone who fails to live up to your expectations. That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time you came to one of my shows? When's the last time you said something positive about my work? When's the last time you treated me with basic respect? She opened her mouth, closed it. Couldn't answer because the answer was damning. You've changed, Vincent. You're nothing like the man I married. The man I married was optimistic, driven, eager to grow as an artist. You've become bitter, defensive, content with mediocrity. Something about that statement, the complete lack of self-awareness, the inability to see her role in any of this, made me laugh, actually laugh, startling her. You're right, Lauren. I have changed. Want to know how? Enlighten me. The man you married used to let you treat him badly, used to absorb your criticism and believe it was constructive, used to think your contempt was somehow his fault, used to accept emotional abuse because he didn't recognize it as abuse. Emotional abuse? That's dramatic. That's accurate. You've spent 3 years systematically tearing down my confidence, mocking my work, comparing me unfavorably to others, and claiming it was for my benefit. That's textbook emotional abuse. I just couldn't see it until recently. I've tried to help you succeed. No, you've tried to shape me into someone who impresses your friends, someone who validates your status in the art world, someone who meets your constantly shifting standard of adequate. I'm not that person. I'll never be that person, and I'm done pretending I need to be. She stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe the man she'd married, the one who believed her criticisms, who tried desperately to earn her approval, was gone, replaced by someone who finally understood his worth. What are you saying? I'm saying this marriage is over. Has been for a while. We just haven't admitted it. You're leaving me? Over some constructive criticism? Over 3 years of emotional abuse disguised as constructive criticism. Over contempt disguised as concern. Over a relationship where I'm valued for my income and my convenience, but not for who I am. I stood up. I'm leaving tonight, taking my art supplies. You can have everything else, the loft, the furniture, all of it. Consider it payment for 12 years of my life. You can't just leave. Watch me. I pulled out the duffel bags I'd packed that morning while she was at brunch, started loading them with paints, brushes, canvases, the essentials of my profession. Everything else, furniture, kitchen stuff, the accumulated debris of 12 years together, I left. Lauren watched, cycling through emotions. Shock, anger, panic. Where will you go? Not your concern. Vincent, stop. Let's talk about this. We can work it out. No, we can't. Because working it out requires mutual respect. You don't respect me. You've made that abundantly clear. That's not true. Lauren, you told your friends I paint housewives. You mocked my $15,000 commission. You've spent years comparing me to other artists and finding me lacking. That's contempt, not respect. And I'm done living with someone who has contempt for me. I grabbed my easel, collapsed it, carried it to the door along with the first duffel. You're being dramatic, throwing away 12 years over hurt feelings. I'm being clear. Finally, after years of confusion, I'm being absolutely clear. You don't value me. You value the idea of being married to an artist. But the actual artist, the man who works 12-hour days creating portraits you dismiss as unambitious, you have nothing but contempt for him. I made 3 more trips. Paints, brushes, canvases, my laptop, the few personal items that mattered. Lauren followed me each time, alternating between anger and pleading. Where are you going? I have a place. This is insane. You're having some kind of crisis? No, I'm having clarity. For the first time in 3 years, I'm seeing everything clearly. I loaded the final bag into my car, a beat-up Toyota I'd bought used 8 years ago. Lauren stood in the doorway of our building, arms crossed. You'll regret this. You're throwing away everything we built. You threw it away years ago, when you decided mocking me was acceptable, when you chose status over partnership, when you stopped seeing me as human. I'm just finally acknowledging what you destroyed. I'll fight the divorce. Make it difficult. Do whatever you want, Lauren. I'm not fighting. You can have the loft, the furniture, everything. I just want out. You think you'll be happier alone? A struggling artist in his late 30s starting over? Than living with someone who treats me with contempt? Absolutely. I got in my car. She stood on the sidewalk, watching me load the last items. In the rearview mirror, I saw her face, confused, angry, not understanding how we'd arrived at this moment. I did. I'd spent months documenting the journey, the slow erosion of respect, the accumulation of small cruelties, the end of partnership by 1,000 cuts. I drove to the apartment I'd rented 3 weeks ago in Queens. 1 bedroom, affordable, close to my studio space, nothing like the Brooklyn loft, but mine. Fully, completely mine. A space where no one would mock my work or compare me to more successful artists or treat my life's passion as a musing hobby. That night, I slept better than I had in 3 years. The gallery show was in 12 days. Sienna had worked miracles getting the Hoffman Gallery on such short notice. The space was perfect. High ceilings, excellent lighting, walls that would showcase the marriage series beautifully. As I spent the week leading up to the opening avoiding Lauren's calls. She texted constantly. Anger, bargaining, accusations, pleas. I ignored all of it. She'd had 3 years to treat me decently. She'd chosen contempt instead. Now she got silence. 5 days before the opening, my lawyer called. Guy named Thomas Brennan, recommended by a fellow artist who'd gone through divorce. I'd retained him the day after I moved out. Your wife's attorney called. She wants to discuss asset division. Says she's willing to be reasonable if you are. Define reasonable. She keeps the loft. You keep your art supplies and any unsold paintings. You split savings 50-50. No alimony either direction since you're both employed professionals. That's fine. More than fine. Tell her I accept. You're sure? You might be entitled to more. The loft has appreciated significantly since you bought it. I don't want the loft. Don't want anything that ties me to her. Clean break. That's all I care about. This is the fastest divorce negotiation I've ever handled. Most people fight over every piece of furniture. Most people want revenge. I just want freedom. The paperwork moved quickly. Connecticut required a 90-day cooling-off period, but with both parties in agreement, the process was straightforward. I'd be officially divorced by spring, free of the woman who'd spent 3 years teaching me what I wouldn't tolerate from a partner. The gallery opening was Friday night. I arrived early to help hang the paintings. The marriage series looked powerful on the Hoffman Gallery walls. 8 portraits, chronologically arranged, showing the end of love. Painting 1. The beginning. Lauren and me at our wedding. Young, hopeful, genuinely happy. Technically perfect, emotionally pure. Painting 2. Partnership. Us in our loft, working side by side. Her cataloging art, me painting. Comfortable domesticity. Painting 3. Drift. Lauren at a gallery event, turned away from me. Distance in her body language. First signs of the wall being built. Painting 4. Comparison. Lauren looking at someone else's art with admiration she no longer showed mine. The erosion of respect made visible. Painting 5. Mockery. Lauren laughing with her friends. My face in shadow. Hearing but unseen. The moment I'd stood in our doorway listening to them mock my work. Painting 6. Contempt. Lauren's face as she criticized my latest work. Disgust barely masked as concern. The end of respect. Painting 7. Isolation. Me alone in the studio, painting while she attended events I wasn't invited to. Separation within marriage. Painting 8. Clarity. My self-portrait. Looking at the viewer with absolute understanding. The man who finally saw the truth. Sienna studied them, silent. Then, these will destroy anyone who sees them. They're brutal, honest, beautiful and terrible at the same time. That's what I was going for. Your wife hasn't seen these? She doesn't know they exist. She's going to be livid. She's going to be irrelevant. By the time she sees them, they'll be sold to collectors and I'll be divorced. The opening started at 7. Collectors, critics, other artists. The crowd was substantial. Sienna had promoted it well, and my reputation was solid enough to draw interest. People moved through the series slowly, studying each painting, reading the titles, understanding the narrative. The response was immediate and powerful. Critics approached me with carefully worded compliments. Devastating work. Emotionally raw. Your best series yet? Collectors inquired about prices. Sienna had priced them aggressively. $20,000 each, or $140,000 for the complete series. By 8:30, all 8 paintings had been sold. The complete series, bought by a collector named Patricia Hammond who specialized in contemporary portraiture. She approached me near the end of the evening. These paintings are extraordinary. Painful, but extraordinary. I've collected art for 30 years. This is the most honest exploration of marriage dissolution I've ever seen. Thank you. They were difficult to create. I imagine. How long were you married? 12 years. Together 14. And she didn't see this coming? The complete breakdown captured in these paintings? I don't know what she saw. I know what I felt. These paintings are that feeling made visible. Patricia nodded slowly. Will you sign them all? I'd like the artist's inscription on each one. I signed all 8 paintings, wrote dates, titles, and on the final one, a note. For the man I became when I stopped accepting less than I deserved. The opening ended around 10. Sienna was ecstatic. Vincent, this is huge. We sold the entire series in 3 hours. Your profile just changed completely. Expect more shows, more commissions, more opportunities. This is career-defining work. It's divorce-defining work. The career part is a bonus. Fair, but you've just proven you're more than a portrait painter. You can do narrative, emotional depth, conceptual work. This opens up your entire artistic future. I drove home to my Queens apartment feeling lighter than I'd felt in years. Not joy, exactly, but relief. The paintings were done, the opening was successful, my life was moving forward in ways Lauren couldn't touch. At midnight, my phone rang. Lauren's number. I let it go to voicemail. Listened to the message the next morning. Vincent, we need to talk. I heard about your gallery show. People are calling me, asking questions. What did you do? What did you paint? Call me back. We need to discuss this. I didn't call back. Just forwarded the voicemail to Thomas with a note. She's heard about the show. Expect pushback. Thomas called an hour later. Her attorney contacted me. Says the paintings constitute defamation, that you've portrayed your wife in a false light. They're threatening legal action. The paintings are my artistic interpretation of my marriage. Nothing in them is false. They're emotional truth, not factual claims. That's the defense we'd use. First Amendment protects artistic expression, but it could get ugly. Let it. The paintings are sold to a private collector. They're not publicly displayed anymore, and I documented 3 years of her treatment. If she wants to make this a legal battle, I have evidence to support every emotion captured in those paintings. Your journal entries and recordings. Connecticut is one-party consent. I recorded several conversations where she mocked my work, criticized my career, compared me unfavorably to others. If she wants to claim I defamed her, I can prove I captured reality. Thomas was quiet. Then, you recorded her without her knowledge? To document abuse? To understand if I was crazy or if her behavior was actually as bad as it felt. Turned out it was worse than I realized. Jesus, Vincent, that's cold. That's self-preservation. She had 3 years to treat me decently. She chose contempt. I chose documentation. Lauren didn't pursue legal action. Probably her attorney explained the First Amendment protections, the difficulty of proving defamation through art, and the risk that I had evidence supporting my portrayal. The threats stopped. The calls continued. I didn't answer. Just let them accumulate. Voicemails of her crying, angry, confused. Vincent, why are you doing this? We can work this out. Please call me back. 3 weeks after I left, 4 weeks after the gallery opening, I was in my studio working on a new commission when my phone rang. Unknown number. Against better judgment, I answered. Vincent, it's Lauren. I know. What do you want? To talk, to understand. You left so suddenly, wouldn't return my calls, and then that gallery show. Vincent, what happened to us? You want the truth? Yes. You spent 3 years treating me with contempt, mocking my work, dismissing my successes, comparing me to other artists and finding me lacking. You made me feel small, insufficient, unworthy. Then you acted confused when I finally had enough. That's not how I was trying to help you reach your potential? No. You were trying to shape me into someone who impressed your friends, someone whose career validated your status in the art world, someone who met your constantly shifting standard of adequate. I'm not that person. I'll never be that person, and I'm done pretending I need to be. I loved you. You loved the idea of being married to an artist. You didn't love me. If you had, you wouldn't have spent 3 years systematically destroying my confidence. That's not fair. Lauren, I kept a journal. 3 years of entries documenting every criticism, every mocking comment, every comparison to other artists. I have recordings of you dismissing my work, telling your friends I paint housewives, claiming I'm the reason our life isn't more impressive. I documented everything because I needed to understand if I was crazy or if your treatment was actually abusive. Turned out it was worse than I realized. Silence on the line. You recorded me? To protect myself, to understand reality versus your gaslighting. Turned out protecting myself was the right call. I've been thinking about us, about our marriage, about the gallery show. I saw photos online. Those paintings, Vincent, they're about me. They're about us, about what happens when one person treats another with contempt while claiming to love them. I never meant to hurt you. Intent doesn't matter. Impact does. You hurt me, repeatedly, for years. Now I'm gone. That's just consequences. I understand now. What I lost. What we had. The value of what I threw away. Good. Understanding is the first step to not repeating the pattern with someone else. Is there any chance? Could we try again? Maybe counseling, working through? No. Just no? After 12 years? Lauren, you showed me who you are. For 3 years, you showed me exactly how you see me and what you think of my work. I believe you. The marriage is over. The divorce will be final in 2 months. Move on. I'm sorry, truly, deeply sorry. I didn't see what I had until it was gone. That's unfortunate, but it doesn't change anything. You had 3 years to treat me decently. You chose contempt. Now you get to live with having chosen contempt. The paintings, they're sold? Complete series. Private collector. They're gone. Everyone's talking about them, about us, about our marriage failing. It's humiliating. I imagine it is. Now you know how I felt listening to you mock my work to your friends. Difference is, my paintings are art. Your mockery was just cruelty. I hate that this is how we end. We ended 3 years ago when respect died. I just finally acknowledged it. I hope you're happy, Vincent. I genuinely hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I already found it. Self-respect, clarity, peace. Everything I couldn't have while married to someone who saw me as a disappointment. She hung up. I blocked her number. The divorce was finalized in April, 4 months after I'd walked out. Clean, uncontested, exactly as negotiated. I kept my art supplies, my unsold paintings, half our savings. Lauren kept the loft, the furniture, the life we'd built. We walked away from each other legally and emotionally severed. The marriage series changed my career. Galleries that had ignored me for years suddenly wanted meetings. Collectors who'd never heard of me inquired about availability. Critics who dismissed my work as technically competent but emotionally safe reassessed my entire body of work. Sienna booked me 3 shows in 6 months. Solo exhibitions at galleries in Los Angeles, Miami, and back in New York, at a space more prestigious than Hoffman. Commissions flooded in. My prices tripled. Work that used to sell for $5,000 was suddenly commanding $15,000. The marriage series, which I'd created as a personal reckoning, had inadvertently established me as an artist capable of emotional depth and narrative complexity. 6 months after leaving Lauren, I was making more money than I'd made in the previous 3 years combined. Living in a modest apartment, but financially stable. Working constantly, but on projects I chose. Dating casually, but not seriously. Rebuilding my life on foundations of self-respect instead of the quicksand of someone else's approval. I thought about Lauren occasionally. Wondered if she'd learned anything from our marriage ending. Wondered if she treated the next person better than she'd treated me. Hoped she had for their sake. But didn't care enough to find out. The best revenge, I'd learned, wasn't destruction or suffering or watching someone struggle with consequences. The best revenge was building a life so fulfilling that your abuser became irrelevant to it. Was being so genuinely happy that their opinion stopped mattering entirely. Lauren had tried to make me small. Had spent 3 years telling me my work was insufficient, my ambition was lacking, my success was embarrassing. Had treated me like a prop in her status-seeking performance. Instead, she'd inadvertently freed me to see my worth, freed me to demand basic respect as a baseline rather than an aspiration, freed me to paint the most honest work of my career. The marriage series, my final statement about our relationship, had become my masterpiece. The paintings she'd inspired through her contempt had changed my entire trajectory as an artist. 1 year after I left, I was 40 years old, single, successful, genuinely content, working on a new series exploring rebuilding after loss, dating a woman named Julia, a writer who respected my work and valued my time and treated me like a partner rather than a project. "Tell me about Lauren," Julia asked one evening over dinner. "Why?" "Because she's part of your story, and I want to understand your story." I told her everything. The criticism, the contempt, the slow erosion of respect, the marriage series, the gallery show, the divorce. Julia listened without judgment. You recorded her? Without her knowing? To document abuse, to understand if I was crazy or if her behavior was actually as bad as it felt. That's methodical. I'm an artist. I see patterns, capture truth, make it visible. I applied those same skills to understanding my marriage. Do you ever regret it? The way you ended things? No. I regret not ending things sooner, not recognizing abuse for what it was, not valuing myself enough to walk away earlier, but the way I ended it, documentation, clarity, clean break, no regrets. What about the paintings? Do you regret making your private pain public? The paintings aren't public. They're in a private collection. I created them as personal reckoning and artistic statement. That they also advance my career was a bonus, not the goal. Julia reached across the table and took my hand. I'm glad she treated you badly. That's harsh? Is it? If she treated you well, you'd still be with her. You wouldn't have created the marriage series. You wouldn't have had the career breakthrough. You wouldn't be here with me. So yes, I'm glad she treated you badly enough that you finally left. I smiled. That's a very practical perspective. I'm a writer. We're practical about heartbreak. It's all material eventually. 2 years after leaving Lauren, I had a solo show at the Whitney. Major career milestone. The kind of exhibition Lauren had always claimed I'd never achieve. The show featured new work, portraits exploring renewal, rebuilding, becoming whole again after being broken. Critics called it my strongest work yet. Vincent Hayes has evolved from technically proficient portraitist to emotionally sophisticated artist, one review said. Lauren showed up at the opening. I hadn't invited her, didn't know she was coming, just saw her across the gallery studying my paintings with an expression I couldn't read. She approached me during a quiet moment. Vincent, hi, the show is beautiful. Thank you. What are you doing here? I wanted to see your work, to understand what you've become. What I've become is someone who values himself enough to walk away from people who don't. I deserve that. She looked around the gallery. You were right, about everything. The criticism, the contempt. I was terrible to you. I've spent 2 years in therapy trying to understand why. And my therapist says I have issues with control and validation, that I tore you down to feel superior, that I used your work as a proxy for measuring my own worth. None of that excuses what I did, but I understand it now. Good. Understanding prevents repetition. Are you happy? Really happy? Yes. I'm doing work I love with people who respect it. Dating someone who treats me like a partner. Living life on my terms instead of trying to meet someone else's constantly shifting expectations. I'm genuinely happy. I'm glad. You deserve happiness. She looked at the paintings around us. I saw the marriage series. Online after it sold. Those paintings haunt me. The way you captured our relationship deteriorating. It was accurate. Painfully accurate. I didn't see it happening in real time. But you did. You documented the whole collapse. That's what artists do. We see what others miss. I saw our marriage dying, captured it, made it visible, then walked away. I'm sorry, Vincent. For all of it. You deserve better than I gave you. Yes, I did. Is there any chance? No. We're done, Lauren. Have been for 2 years. This conversation is closure, not reconnection. She nodded, tears forming. I hope you stay happy. I hope Julia, that's her name, right? Appreciates what she has. She does? Because I'm clear about my boundaries now. About what I will and won't accept from a partner. You taught me that lesson. Painfully, but effectively. Lauren left. I watched her walk out of the gallery, out of my life, probably for the last time. Felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no lingering attachment. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing I'd handled everything exactly right, from documentation to execution. Julia found me a few minutes later. Was that her, Lauren? Yeah. She came to see the show, to apologize, apparently. How did that feel? Like closing a book I finished reading years ago. Interesting as a historical artifact, but irrelevant to my current story. Good answer. She kissed me. Let's celebrate your show properly. These paintings are incredible, Vincent. You've captured something true about rebuilding after loss. About becoming whole again. The Whitney show ran for 6 weeks. Sold out completely. Museums acquired 2 pieces. My career trajectory had shifted permanently. I wasn't a portrait artist anymore. I was an artist whose medium happened to be portraiture, but whose subject was human emotional experience. 3 years after leaving Lauren, Julia and I got married. Small ceremony, close friends, family. No elaborate production, no parental involvement in planning. Just 2 people making promises to treat each other with consistent kindness and respect. I promise to never mock your writing, I said during our vows, to support your work even when I don't understand it, to treat you like a partner, not a project. I promise to never diminish your art, Julia said, to celebrate your successes without comparison, to value you as you are, not who I think you should be. We meant those vows, built a marriage on foundations of mutual respect, rather than the quicksand of contempt disguised as concern. Had disagreements, certainly, all couples do, but handled them with communication rather than criticism, with honesty rather than mockery. I thought about the man I'd been when married to Lauren, the one who'd absorbed her criticism, who'd believed her when she said his work was insufficient, who'd tried desperately to become whoever she needed him to be. That man was gone, replaced by someone who knew his worth, who demanded basic respect, who walked away from people who couldn't provide it. Lauren had tried to destroy my confidence. Instead, she'd inadvertently shown me what I wouldn't tolerate, had pushed me to create the most powerful work of my career, had forced me to choose myself over the comfortable dysfunction of our marriage. 4 years after leaving, I got an email from an unfamiliar address. Subject line, "Thank you." I almost deleted it. Curiosity won. Vincent, I know we haven't spoken since the Whitney show. I know you don't want contact, but I needed to tell you something whether you read it or not. I'm in therapy still, working through why I treated you the way I did. My therapist helped me understand I was projecting my own inadequacy onto you, that I tore down your work because I felt insufficient in my own career, that I used contempt as a weapon to feel superior when I actually felt small. None of that excuses what I did. Nothing excuses treating someone you claim to love with contempt, but I understand it now in ways I didn't during our marriage. I'm writing to say thank you for documenting everything, for creating the marriage series, for making visible what I couldn't see during our relationship. Those paintings forced me to confront the truth about who I'd become. I'm different now, kinder, more self-aware. I treat people better. My current partner, James, a musician, says I'm supportive of his work in ways I never was with yours. I hope he's right. I hope I learned from destroying us. I know you're happy, remarried, thriving. I see your shows, read reviews, watch your career flourish. I'm genuinely glad. You deserved success and partnership and respect. I'm just sorry I couldn't give you any of those things. This isn't a request for contact, just acknowledgement that your revenge worked. Not because you destroyed me, you didn't. Because you showed me who I'd become, forced me to face it, and walked away. That was more devastating than any retaliation could have been. I hope you stay happy. I hope Julia values what I couldn't. I hope your art continues to capture truth in ways that change people. Thank you for documenting my worst self, for making it visible, for caring enough about yourself to leave when I couldn't treat you decently. Lauren, I read that email 3 times, looking for manipulation, for hidden agenda, for attempts to reopen connection. Found none of those things. Just a woman acknowledging what she'd done and taking responsibility for it. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. She was right. The revenge had worked. Not through destruction or suffering, but through documentation and departure. Through refusing to accept less than basic respect. Through building a life so fulfilling that her contempt became irrelevant. I showed the email to Julia. She read it silently. Are you going to respond? No, she's not looking for response. She's processing her own growth. That's her journey, not mine. That's very zen. That's very done. Lauren is ancient history. A lesson learned, a series painted, a chapter closed. She taught me what I won't tolerate. You're teaching me what I should expect. Both lessons matter, but yours matters more. Julia kissed me. I love you, Vincent Hayes. Even your methodical, documentation-obsessed brain. I love you too. Even your writerly tendency to see everything as potential material. Everything is potential material, including this conversation. I'm aware. Just don't make me the villain in your next novel. You could never be a villain. You're too honest. Villains require deception. You're fundamentally incapable of it. 5 years after leaving Lauren, I was 43 years old. Married to Julia for 2 years, living in a brownstone in Brooklyn we'd bought together. My career was stable, respected, profitable. I painted what I wanted, showed where I wanted, commanded prices that let me live comfortably without compromising artistic integrity. The marriage series, my final statement about Lauren, had been acquired by the Museum of Modern Art. Patricia Hammond had donated it with the stipulation that it be displayed as a complete set. The museum was planning a show examining contemporary artists exploring personal narrative through portraiture. My series would be featured prominently. The MoMA curator called to discuss the exhibition. We'd like you to do an artist talk. about the creation process, the emotional journey, what inspired the series. I don't talk about my personal life publicly. These paintings are your personal life. They document a marriage ending. That's the whole point. They document emotional truth. The specifics of who and why don't matter. The universal experience of love dying, that's what matters. Fair enough. But Vincent, people are going to ask about your ex-wife, about what happened, about how this series changed your career. You need to be prepared for those questions. I'll answer what I'm comfortable answering. The rest is private. The MoMA show opened in November. Huge event, massive press coverage, my work displayed alongside established artists I'd admired for decades. The marriage series looked powerful in the museum context. Viewers stood before each painting, reading titles, understanding the narrative, seeing themselves in the universal story of love turning to contempt. During the artist talk, someone asked the inevitable question, is the series autobiographical? All art is autobiographical to some degree. Whether it's literal autobiography or emotional autobiography varies. This series captures emotional truth about what happens when respect dies in a relationship. But it's based on your marriage? It's based on my understanding of how love transforms into contempt when one person consistently treats another as insufficient. Whether that understanding came from personal experience or observation or imagination, does it matter? The paintings communicate truth regardless of their factual basis. Your ex-wife has said in interviews that the paintings are accurate, that they captured your marriage ending. Then she's confirmed the emotional honesty of the work. That's all I ever claimed they were, emotionally honest. Another question. Do you regret creating such a public documentation of private pain? No. Artists process experience by making it visible. I processed my experience. That the resulting work resonated with viewers and advanced my career. That's a bonus, not the primary purpose. Some critics have called the series revenge art. Would you agree with that characterization? I thought about that. About Lauren's email thanking me for documenting her worst self. About the years I'd spent rebuilding after leaving. About the life I'd created that had nothing to do with punishing her. No. Revenge implies desire to harm. These paintings weren't about harming anyone. They were about understanding something that confused me. How love dies, how respect erodes, how two people who once cared about each other become strangers. The fact that my ex-wife felt exposed by that understanding, that's not revenge. That's just truth being uncomfortable. The talk ended. Viewers approached with questions, comments, personal stories about their own relationships ending. Universal themes made specific through 8 paintings of one marriage dying. Julia found me afterward. You handled that well, the personal questions. I told the truth without revealing details. Art school taught me that skill. Your revenge really was living well, wasn't it? Not the paintings themselves, but everything that came after. The career success, the new marriage, the life you built without her. That wasn't revenge. That was just choosing myself. Choosing to value what I do, to demand respect, to walk away from people who can't provide basic decency. Lauren called it revenge in her email, but it was just consequences. Yeah? She treated me badly. I left. She lost access to whatever good I brought to her life. That's not revenge. That's just cause and effect. Very philosophical. Very practical. Revenge requires ongoing investment in hurting someone. I invested in myself instead. Built a life so good that what she'd destroyed became irrelevant. That's not revenge. That's just living well. 10 years after leaving Lauren, I was 48 years old. Still married to Julia, still painting, still thriving. The marriage series was permanently displayed at MoMA. My work was in collections worldwide. I'd had retrospectives, won awards, been featured in major publications. The struggling portrait artist Lauren had mocked was now considered a significant figure in contemporary portraiture. I thought about her sometimes. Not with anger or resentment. Those emotions had burned out years ago. Just with the distant curiosity you might feel about a character from a book you read long ago. Someone who'd been important once but was fundamentally irrelevant now. The final irony was that Lauren had been right about one thing. I had changed. I was nothing like the man she'd married. The man she'd married had absorbed criticism, had believed her when she said he was insufficient, had tried desperately to become whoever she needed. That man was gone, replaced by someone who knew his worth, who demanded respect, who walked away from people who couldn't provide it. Someone who'd learned that the cruelest thing you can do to an abuser is simply stop caring about their opinion. Lauren had tried to make me small. Instead, she'd inadvertently taught me to value myself, had pushed me to create my best work, had forced me to choose growth over comfort. The paintings I'd created during our marriage, the ones she'd dismissed as unambitious, now commanded significant prices. The marriage series she'd inspired through her contempt was considered a landmark work. My career had flourished precisely because I'd stopped trying to impress her and started trusting my own artistic vision. One evening, Julia and I were having dinner when she asked something she'd never asked before. "Do you think you would have become this successful if you'd stayed with Lauren?" "No, definitely not." "Why?" "Because I was spending all my energy trying to meet her constantly shifting standards instead of developing my actual artistic voice. I was painting what I thought would impress her instead of what actually mattered to me. She was right that I needed to grow as an artist. She was just wrong about how that growth needed to happen." "So in a weird way, she helped your career by treating you so badly that you had to leave?" "In the weirdest way possible, yes. By being so consistently contemptuous that I finally valued myself enough to walk away. By making it impossible to stay without losing all self-respect, she inadvertently gave me the push I needed to choose myself over the comfortable dysfunction we'd built. That's the ultimate revenge, isn't it? Her contempt leading directly to your success." "I don't think about it as revenge anymore, just as cause and effect. She made choices. I made choices in response. We both live with the outcomes. She lost a partner who loved her. I lost a partner who didn't respect me. We're both better off." You're very zen about all of this. I've had 10 years to process it. 10 years of building a life so good that what happened with Lauren stopped mattering. That's not zen. That's just distance and perspective. 15 years after leaving Lauren, I was 53 years old, still painting, still married to Julia, still living a life built on foundations of mutual respect and honest communication. My career had settled into comfortable success. Regular exhibitions, steady sales, work I was proud of. I rarely thought about Lauren anymore. She'd become what she should have been all along, a closed chapter, a lesson learned, a person who taught me important things about what I wouldn't tolerate. Then I got news through the art world grapevine. Lauren was curating a show about relationships in contemporary art. She'd requested to include the marriage series in the exhibition. MoMA had approved the loan. I called the museum. I heard Lauren Mitchell is curating a show that will include my marriage series. Yes, it's about artistic explorations of intimate relationships. Your series fits perfectly. I don't consent to that specific curator handling my work. Mr. Hayes, once work enters a museum collection, you don't control how it's displayed. The loan agreements are between museums, not individual artists and curators. Then I want it on record that I find it inappropriate for my ex-wife, the subject of those paintings, to be curating an exhibition that includes them. That's a massive conflict of interest. Noted, but the show is proceeding. Ms. Mitchell has been transparent about her connection to the work. In fact, that's part of why the show is compelling. She's curating an exhibition about intimate relationships while including documentation of her own failed marriage. I hung up feeling uneasy. 15 years later, and Lauren was still finding ways to be relevant to my work, not through contact or manipulation, but through professional proximity. She couldn't control me anymore, so she was controlling the context around my art. Julia noticed my expression. What's wrong? Lauren's curating a show that includes the marriage series, using our failed relationship as professional material. Can you stop it? No. Once work enters museum collections, I lose control over display. I just have to accept that the woman who spent 3 years tearing me down is now professionally benefiting from curating the art I created about her tearing me down. That's twisted. That's the art world. Everything becomes material eventually, including divorce. The exhibition opened 6 months later. Intimate Failures, Contemporary Artists Explore Love's End. The marriage series was prominently featured, displayed alongside work by other artists who documented their own relationship breakdowns. Lauren wrote the catalog essay about my series. I read it once, clinically, looking for manipulation or falsehood. Found neither. Just honest assessment of the work's technical skill and emotional impact. She acknowledged being the subject, acknowledged the marriage ending badly, acknowledged that the paintings captured truth she'd been unable to see during our relationship. The essay concluded, Vincent Hayes transformed personal pain into universal narrative. These 8 paintings document not just one marriage ending, but the slow passing of respect that destroys all relationships. As the subject of these paintings, I can confirm their emotional accuracy while appreciating their artistic merit. Hayes saw what I couldn't see during our marriage, that contempt is not concern, that criticism is not love, that diminishing your partner is not helping them grow. These paintings made visible what I'd refused to acknowledge. For that painful gift of clarity, I remain grateful. I showed the essay to Julia. She read it silently. She's taking credit for your artistic evolution. positioning herself as the muse who inspired your best work. She did inspire it, just not in the way muses traditionally inspire. She inspired it by being so consistently terrible that I had to document the experience to understand it. And now she's curating shows about it, making her contempt into professional credential. Let her. It doesn't affect me. The paintings are sold in a permanent collection, completely out of my control. What Lauren does with them curatorially is irrelevant to my life now. Doesn't it bother you that she's professionally benefiting from the relationship she destroyed? I thought about that. Really thought about it. No, because my career is established independently of her. The marriage series opened doors, but I walked through them based on the strength of subsequent work. If Lauren wants to build her curatorial reputation on essays about art documenting our failed marriage, that's her choice. It doesn't diminish what I've built. That's very mature. That's very done. She can't hurt me anymore, Julia. She lost that power 15 years ago when I walked out with my paints and brushes. Everything since has just been her trying to remain relevant to a story that ended the day I stopped accepting her contempt. The exhibition ran for 4 months, got significant press coverage. Critics praised Lauren's curatorial vision while discussing the various artists' approaches to documenting relationship dissolution. My marriage series was consistently cited as the exhibition's strongest work. Lauren tried to contact me once during the run. Email to my professional address. Vincent, I know we don't speak, but I wanted to thank you for allowing the marriage series to be included in the show. It's the centerpiece, the work that gives the entire exhibition its emotional anchor. I hope you're well. I didn't respond. Just forwarded the email to Julia with a note. She's still trying to make herself relevant to my work. Julia replied, and you're still refusing to engage. That's the perfect response. Silence as statement. 20 years after leaving Lauren, I was 58 years old. The marriage series was considered a landmark work in contemporary portraiture. My career had spanned 4 decades. I'd taught at major art schools, mentored young artists, contributed to the field in ways that extended beyond my own paintings. Julia and I were still married, still happy, still treating each other with consistent kindness and respect. We'd built a life based on partnership rather than power dynamics, on mutual support rather than competitive status seeking. I thought about the man I'd been at 38, the one who'd absorbed Lauren's criticism, who'd believed her when she said he was insufficient, who'd tried desperately to become whoever she needed. That man felt like a different person, someone I'd known once but had fundamentally outgrown. Lauren had tried to make me small, had spent 3 years systematically tearing down my confidence while claiming to help me grow, had treated me with contempt while claiming to love me, had destroyed our marriage through her own choices while blaming me for not being enough. And I'd documented it all. The slow passing of respect, the erosion of partnership, the moment when love turned to contempt, made it visible through 8 paintings that became the most important work of my career. That was the revenge she'd referenced in her emails. Not deliberate harm, but documentation, not vindictiveness, but truth-telling, not destruction, but simply walking away with my art supplies and refusing to accept less than basic respect. The marriage series had changed both our lives. It had launched my career into a new phase of success and recognition. It had forced Lauren to confront her treatment of me and apparently sparked years of therapy and growth. But the real impact wasn't professional or therapeutic. It was personal. Those paintings had given me clarity about what I wouldn't tolerate, about the difference between constructive feedback and emotional abuse, about the importance of valuing yourself enough to walk away from people who consistently treated you as insufficient. Lauren had taught me that lesson painfully but effectively, and I'd transformed that pain into art that helped other people recognize contempt in their own relationships. That was worth more than any revenge could have been. One final evening, late in our 50s, Julia asked me something she'd wondered about for years. Do you think you could forgive her now, Lauren, after 20 years? I thought about it, really thought about it. Forgiveness implies I'm still carrying anger or resentment that needs releasing. I'm not. She's just someone I used to know who taught me important lessons about what I need from a partner. Those lessons were painful, but valuable. I don't need to forgive her because I'm not angry anymore. I'm just grateful the relationship ended before I wasted more years accepting treatment I didn't deserve. So what would you say to her if you saw her now? Probably nothing. We don't have anything to discuss. She made her choices 20 years ago. I made mine in response. We both lived with the outcomes. She lost a partner who loved her. I lost a partner who didn't respect me. We're both better off. No anger at all? None. Anger requires caring. I stopped caring about Lauren's opinion the day I loaded my art supplies into my car and drove away. Everything since has just been building a life so good that what happened with her became completely irrelevant to my happiness. Julia smiled. That's the ultimate revenge, isn't it? Not caring anymore. That's not revenge. That's just healing. That's just time and distance and building something better with someone who values you. Revenge implies desire to harm. I just wanted to be free. The fact that my freedom looked like success, that wasn't revenge. That was just the natural outcome of finally valuing myself. And that was the truth. 20 years after leaving, after creating the marriage series, after rebuilding my life on foundations of self-respect instead of external validation, that was the truth. Lauren had tried to make me small. Instead, she'd taught me my worth, had pushed me to create my best work, had forced me to choose myself over the comfortable dysfunction of accepting contempt. The paintings I'd created that night I left, the marriage series documenting our relationship's slow passing, those paintings had become my legacy, the work that defined my career and helped countless viewers recognize contempt in their own relationships. That was the revenge Lauren had thanked me for in her emails. Not because I'd destroyed her, but because I'd valued myself enough to leave. Because I'd documented what she'd done instead of accepting her version of reality. Because I'd transformed pain into art that made her treatment visible. But it wasn't revenge. It was just honesty. Just truth-telling. Just an artist doing what artists do. Making the invisible visible, capturing emotional reality, forcing viewers to see what they'd rather ignore. I'd painted the truth about our marriage. Lauren hadn't been able to live with that truth being visible. That was her problem, not mine. 20 years later, sitting with Julia in the brownstone we'd bought together, living a life built on mutual respect and honest communication, I finally understood what had happened with Lauren. She'd tried to destroy my confidence. Instead, she'd destroyed only my tolerance for being treated badly. The artist who emerged from that destruction, the one who valued himself enough to walk away, who demanded basic respect as a baseline. That artist had created work that mattered. That was the real story. Not revenge, but transformation. Not vindictiveness, but clarity. Not destruction, but reconstruction. And the smile Lauren had seen that night I left, the one she couldn't understand, that smile was just recognition that I'd finally seen the truth clearly, that I'd valued myself enough to choose freedom over comfort, that I'd taken my paints and brushes and walked away from someone who'd never understood their value. 20 years later, I was still smiling. Not because she'd suffered, but because I hadn't. Because I'd built a life so good that what happened with her had become just a story I occasionally told about learning to value myself. That was the perfect ending. Not revenge, but peace. Not vindictiveness, but contentment. Not pain inflicted, but joy discovered. Lauren had tried to make me nothing like the man she'd married. She'd succeeded. The man she'd married had accepted contempt. The man I became demanded respect, and that man, the one who knew his worth, who walked away from disrespect, who transformed pain into art that helped others, that man was exactly who I was meant to be all along.